like to invite Mr. Chaitanya to take the baton. And the question that I would like to pose to him is, what do you think is the role that technology is playing to boost the healthcare in India, and how do you think that is going to evolve?
Thanks a lot, Manas, for the first question, and great to be a part of this panel. A lot of familiar faces, including Mr. Sarvanan and Arun and others. I'll just take a step back before I jump into the exact answer of how technology can help. I think it's kind of important to understand what the healthcare ecosystem of India looks like, right? So, I mean, to start off with, the first thing is that there is a big urban versus rural divide. And sorry, am I audible? Sorry, I think
now you are.
Yeah, sorry. Did no one hear anything? I went on for like 3 minutes. Oh God, sorry.
A few seconds. Only a few seconds.
So you just missed out a few seconds, right? So what I was basically saying was that before we jump into the answer of how will technology help us? How is it helping us right now in healthcare? I'd like to just kind of lay out the market, so to say, the landscape of the healthcare ecosystem in India, right? So I think one prime thing that has actually hit me in the past 3, 4 years or 5 years that I have been working with healthcare is that there is a stark disparity in terms of supply and demand between urban and rural, right? So in urban areas, there is definitely almost an excess of hospital beds. There is an excess of doctors, excess of hospitals at some level, which creates undue competition over there. And there is like a serious shortage in terms of the same facilities in the rural areas, right? So one of the things that I realized was that that kind of disparity is always going to create problems. And I think that's one of the first places where technology in a very basic form can kind of fit in. Also, if you look at like the simple doctor-patient ratio in India, you will see that India has a ratio of something like 1:1700, 1:1800, right? One physician for every 1800, 1900 population. Interestingly, even Pakistan, our friendly neighbors, have a better ratio than us. They are sitting at about 1:1500 kind of a thing. And when you look at that number and you break it up for urban and rural, you'll actually see that in urban that goes down to 1:1300, and in rural that is as bad as 1:2700, 1:2800, right? So the second area where I think technology will basically play a role is going to be around providing leverage to the doctors, right? How do you actually enable one doctor to reach out to a lot more people, which means that some of the more mundane tasks of his day-to-day working actually get automated, there is triaging, there's so many things that actually get addressed in that sense. The third issue, and given I'm the chief digital officer at Cloudnine, I've kind of seen this very closely, and prior to this, Mr. Sarvanan knows I used to run a healthcare startup. So one thing that I've realized is that in healthcare in India, one of the biggest problem is this system called the HIS, right? The HIS system is the core of any hospital. It's basically the ERP in any hospital. And for the 15,000 odd hospitals that we have, there are 3,000 odd HIS providers, right? So it's a very fragmented market, and one of the biggest problems that a CIO, CDO faces is that getting that system to integrate with any other system is a huge, humongous task kind of a thing. So that is somewhat laying out the land. I believe, like, obviously there is a role that technology will play in terms of bridging the supply-demand gap that exists between the urban areas and the rural areas. There are two other things that will actually become very important. One is through AI, through any kind of triaging mechanisms, how far do you reduce the load on the doctor? Third and most importantly, the way the government is actually looking at some of these areas, for example, through the NMC bill and stuff, where the focus is on seeing if Ayush specialists can actually start writing allopathic drugs, right? Now, undoubtedly, there is any doctor, and I'm sure Dr. Krishna will also agree with this, there is always a certain level of doubt about how an Ayush specialist will actually work with allopathic drugs, right? So I think that's another area where technology can play a key role in bridging that gap. Can there be decision support systems? Can there be some kind of system that actually help an Ayush doctor make the same kind of decisions as another well-qualified specialist could be, right? So these are, I think, 2, 3 areas. To summarize, one is bridge the supply-demand gap. Second, try to get further efficiency in terms of how our doctors treat their patients. And third, see how you can get a certain standardization of care irrespective of which doctor you're going to. that I think would be the large summary. I also believe that some of the things around improving patient experience, like uh, online payments, booking your lab tests, all of those things over app, and not depending on a manual paper pencil kind of an approach, those will begin to become very hygiene, right? So those are going to be basic things that all of our customers are going to demand. So one thing we should realize, and I work in Cloudnine Hospitals where the TG is, where the target customer group or the target patient group is very specific between say about 25 to 40 years. And these are all the people who use your Uber, Ola, Zomato, Swiggy. So the minimum expectation they have is, yeah, I should be able to pay for the appointment from home and see my reports on a phone. So that is, I think, going to become a hygiene kind of a thing very quickly. I know all hospitals are working in that direction, but the disruptive change is going to be in terms of how you help our healthcare professionals actually scale up their expertise and reach out to more people. Right? I'm sorry, I think I took a very long answer, but hopefully that was just. Right?
No, it's great that I think we all appreciate the detail. I think that's something that everyone appreciates. So we talked a lot about how technology is going to boost the overall healthcare system, right? I also wanted to ask you on your thoughts on how will the current normal going to change, because we talked about integrating multiple systems and now how hospitals are going to sort of adapt or get that digital transformation going. But what do you think is the new normal going to be from a basic user as such, and how technology is going to impact that?
So I think that's a very, 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 very interesting topic, and I think the 5-6 minutes that you are giving is going to be short for that. I could take the remaining 30 minutes on this topic. Uh, so I think let me actually just talk about my experience at Cloudnine since, and I think the counter started around March 18th, March 19th, when the Janta curfew was announced, when Prime Minister Modi went on stage and said that we're going to have this lockdown begin and stuff like that. So very simple thing, we started with video consultations, okay? And we had a platform somewhat ready and tested about 6 months ago. The regulations did not allow you to scale it up kind of a thing, okay? So around March 18, 19, we kind of pulled out the project and said, let's get this back on track and let's launch. Interestingly, Cloudnine has its own internal technology development team. So the coders and all are sitting within the company. So most of the products except for the HIS is kind of built in-house. So on March 25th, which was Ugadi, we did our first consultation, right? First video consultation. Within a span of 7 days, we put the workflow together, started going and stuff like that. And in a matter of, I think, 2 weeks, by April 12th to 13th, we were trending close to about 1,000 consults a day, right? That is the kind of scale that we got to in a fairly short time. Obviously, it's a big hospital, there are 200 doctors behind you and stuff like that. Obviously, the trend is kind of going down now that the hospitals are opening up. But I think one big thing that happened in the process was that something like video consultation became very acceptable for both patients and doctors, right? Doctors will still come and tell you that it's not a panacea, it's not going to solve all problems, but there are a bunch of issues that that video consultation is well suited to solve. There is a level of trust that has been built among customers also on these kind of platforms. So I think this is here to stay. Video consultation, specifically in the healthcare domain, is going to become like, it's going to be a normal. It's going to take about 25-30% of your OP load will be through video consult. I don't think it's going to be higher than that. Physical consult will still hold its importance, kind of a thing. I think, I mean, and that is just a story about what's going on and stuff. But I think in terms of how this entire event has impacted us, it's always best to start with thinking about the patient and saying how has his life changed, right? How has his or her life changed? So some of the things that I can be very confident about is that we're going to be some level of OCD going forward. You will, no matter, even if COVID disappears, you're going to have some level of obsessive compulsive disorder. You're going to wash your hands 10 times a day. You're going to think 10 times before you step out of your house. I have a 15-month-old baby, right? So my wife has basically told me that for the next 2 years, we are not stepping out of the city under any circumstance, right? So I think those kind of changes are going to happen on the customer side, and it's going to remain there for the next 5 to 10 years at the least, right? We got to think 10 times before we walk into the theater next time. And theaters are themselves not going to open up for the next 7-8 years. So all of this is going to get a lot of, so this in some way is the demonetization moment for fintech. And there's the same thing for health tech in that sense, right? So video consultation was the first to go. You're going to see a lot more things happen. Look at this webinar, right? If there was going to be a panel discussion, we would have been sitting in a nice a nice hotel, having a lunch, probably even a drink in the evening, and then talking. But this is the new normal. You will see so many of these happening, and they're effective, right? For example, even at Cloudnine, we do a lot of so for the 9 months journey, we have a lot of sessions where we go and educate the patient or educate the mother about how to treat, how to handle their baby, right? These used to be classroom sessions where they would show up in the hospital, sitting shoulder to shoulder, and with 100 people sitting in a room that should have accommodated 80 people. Now we've completely moved that online, and in those sessions we have 850, 900,000 people showing up, kind of a thing. It's acceptable, it is understood, it's used, kind of a thing, right? So that is like one more area. So video consultation, what we're doing on moving some of these classes online. These are permanent changes. These will stay for a much longer time. I think the healthcare doesn't fall into that bucket, but work from home is again becoming a new normal, right? Every company is coming and saying that we are going into a work from home mode permanently. So I think hospitals won't go into that bucket, but a lot of impact in that direction is going to happen. So as I said, I'm going to stop here because I'll just take the next 30.
No worry, no worry, no worry.